everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Isabel Velarde, founder and CEO of Innovation Hub Consulting and Women in Tech Ambassador for Peru. I'm very proud to be speaking at the first MENA Innovation Technology Transfer Summit. I'm also happy that Peru is so well represented in this summit with Alba San Martin, who will be speaking at the Women in Tech panel. I'm joined by Veronica Zavala, who is currently the manager of the Inter-American Development Bank's Department for the countries of Central America, Haiti, Mexico, Panama, and the Dominican Republic. Prior to joining the ADB, she also worked as sector manager at the World Bank for Latin America's public sector. When it comes to her educational background, she holds a master's in public administration from the John F. Kennedy School of Government at Harvard University. In Peru, she has previously been a Minister of Transport and Communication, among others positions related to the reform of the Peruvian state and the promotion of private investment. Now, I will have the pleasure to discuss with Veronica, who is also part of the Advisory Board for Women in Tech at Peru chapter. Welcome, Veronica.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
In the first place, I know the ADB has carried out studies on gender gaps in science, technology, and innovation in Latin America and the Caribbean. Could you tell us about the findings in terms of gender gap in STEM areas?
Okay, thank you. We are starting to do those type of studies. I think that we are far from really having the robust data that we need, but there are some preliminary conclusions that I think that we are seeing, some data that is interesting, and that I will be very happy to share that. First, seeing the glass half full, it's in the case of Latin America, we are glad to see that we are not that far behind. In the developing world, I mean, Latin America is, together with Southeast Asia, among the regions that have a better representation of women in STEM, and that's very good news. But once we start looking a little bit more into the details of data, especially for Colombia, Mexico, and Chile, that are the ones that have better data, we can see that there are things that are not perfect. For example, there are in Mexico, many of the scholarships go to women in science for the postgraduate studies. That's super good news. But then at the same time, we can see that once they come back, they don't have the space to really use those careers. Only 15% of the scientists in the National System for Scientists are women. So that is not only personally a tragedy, but also in terms of use of resources, that's also a tragedy. Because you invest a lot in having very well-qualified women, but then you don't have them be able to have the careers that they would deserve. Another interesting finding is that although women in STEM have been growing, and now there's some countries that have even almost 50% of graduates from STEM being women, we can see that there's a gender bias within STEM. I mean, women are overrepresented in veterinary medicine, but are underrepresented in other areas like engineering or IT. And that's important because, I mean, we are still within the science putting women in the side of more the caring side. And that is also worrisome because the professions that are growing the most are precisely the ones that are related to IT, computer science, and those. So we still have work to do. The needle has been moving, but we still have more work ahead of us.
Thank you, Veronica. This pandemic has changed the world as we know it. Among many other factors, it has accelerated digital transformation. What repercussions do you think the pandemic has on the participation of women in STEM areas?
Another very interesting question. I mean, what you're saying, I mean, we have seen how the pandemic has accelerated digital transformation. I mean, there are three things that are clear right now. I mean, that I think that have started and will remain with us. Number one, telework. Number two, digital platforms. And number three, the fact that today there exists a digital training. So the last two, I think, are very key because we are seeing a lot of digital transformation, and as I was saying before, women are not that represented in this area. So this transformation is occurring with less women than desirable or needed. And that will, I mean, if we don't act fast, that could widen the gap between men and women in these areas. Additionally, I mean, we have been seeing that we need more women in science because otherwise the product that comes is not perfect. And we can see here, for example, that algorithms tend to perpetuate biases, and we need all of the brain that as humans we have into this digital transformation. And that's all the diversity that we can provide, it would be good to have. In that sense, I mean, we need more women in the digital transformation. But I was saying that the third element, which is training, digital training, I think it's a good opportunity for women to be trained so that they can migrate to these other areas of science. Otherwise, I mean, we are running the risk of having solutions that are not the best for society as a whole. And I'm thinking here of biases in the solutions, but I am also thinking of other areas of tech. We need more women. For example, when we think about the dummies that are used for testing cars, they have always been made with male dummies, and that means that cars are not as fit for women in a car crash than for men. So in all areas of science, we need more women, and in the digital side, clearly. And I'm saying that because if you see what are the professions that are growing the most nowadays, those are the professions linked to IT, like cybersecurity, like e-commerce, like robotics, artificial intelligence. Those are the professions that are growing the most, and those are the professions that are paying the most. So we need more women there, because otherwise we are condemning women to professions that are not so fulfilling, that have more risk of disappearing, and with lower salaries. So it's very key that we use the possibilities of training nowadays to help women migrate and do everything we can, in fact, so that we have more women in STEM and more women in IT, engineering in particular.
In this situation, what we could do?
Well, I think that the first thing that comes to mind is having more forums like this one, more networks like Women in Tech. That is a first, because that allows women to have much more space to network, to be visible, to see other women doing things, and that's very, very important to believe that you can do it. That's one issue that I want to mention. Secondly, I mean, I was commenting on some insights, some preliminary findings in the studies that we have at the IDB. But even in that study, our country, Peru, is not there. We didn't have the data on time. So more data. We need much longer periods of times of data, wider, disaggregated by gender, disaggregated by the professions within STEM, within the different areas of engineering. I mean, really robust data to see what's going on and where are things going and where are women in this struggle. So data, additionally to networking, it's very, very important. Another thing that I think it's very important and is addressing the root causes of this. Women are not more represented in sciences, mostly because they feel not empowered to work with math, with sciences. And that happens, that doesn't happen when they're in first grade. They kind of like start believing in themselves along the primary school, and we need to work so that those girls do not think that they are not capable or they are not called in these professions. And for that, we need to start addressing things at different levels. The parents, the teachers. So the root causes should be also addressed. We need to think that in 20 years, I mean, this conversation should not happen. And for that, we need to really, really address those situations. And then, I mean, this past week, we suffered the loss of the Justice of the U.S., Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who is, I think, one of the most brilliant minds of our times. And she said, women belong in all places where decisions are made. And so another thing that we need to do is be sure that we have women in all places where decisions are being made. And that be for policy, for science, for education, all areas. So I will insist of visibility and having women in positions, addressing the root causes, data, and also, I mean, having more networks, more forums, more workshops where we can discuss all of these issues. I mean, for me, that's so very clear that that's why I joined the invitation for being part of the advisory board for the Peru chapter of Women in Tech. We need to all be part of this so that we can help the younger generations to really be able to network, to be able to see and have the mentoring to believe in themselves and really, really be all they can be.
Unfortunately, that's about all we have time for today. Veronica, thank you so much for these insights. Do you have any final comments to share with your audience today?
No, I think I have covered everything. Thank you very much for the invitation. And I think that this is a forum that we need to see more of. That's very needed. So congratulations on the initiative.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We are nearly at the end of what has been an incredible summit. Please join us for closing remarks by His Excellency Hussein Mahmoudi, CEO of Sharjah Research, Technology and Innovation Park.